Cool. All right. Just want to make sure that's up and running.
Yep.
As you guys know, we're here on another Tuesday call. Right now, just showing the napkin underwriting calculator tool used. And really just want to kind of leave it up to open forum at the moment. See if you guys have any questions. If not, I can go through this because I think some people haven't seen it before or haven't played with it too much. So if you guys have any questions immediately or any underwriting questions, please let me know. If not, I can kind of go through this right now, just like a general overview. So Dan, have you underwritten a lot of deals? I'm gonna start with you just because you're unmuted.
So right now, currently, I'm at about 25 deals that I've underwritten using the Michael Blanc tool,
The SDA one?
the SDA. Yep.
So that's what I normally use, and he's one of the preferred partners with MFC, and he dabbles into. Um, we have his. He's been on the call too as well, so I recommend anyone who hasn't check out the YouTube. He's been on it. I use that calculator. Initially, I was like, "There's too much going on. Like it was too much." But as you realize, it's not that bad. As you kind of get more familiar with it, because I had a little shortcut one that I was using, a little different from this because I had this before I actually made the napkin underwriting one, and it's this one. If it would load.
Now, is this a new calculator that you're using, a different one?
The one I'm about to show is one I've been using for the longest, actually. Just because of familiarity, I've made improvements to it. I've built part of it out myself. Um, Added some stuff in and out of it. Um, so this is one I've used. A lot more going on. It is a little deeper than underwrite, but not quite the SDA. One thing I like about this is it shows me what today looks like and what the pro forma is and what the returns I'm targeting. One thing I don't love about this, it doesn't really show your IRR, AR, and your equity multiplier like a Michael Blanc or some other calculators will. But this is the one I got really familiar with, made some improvements and adjustments from when I originally acquired it with the ratios, the income, and I forgot what else. I love this section. Also, a little trick with the assumable debt part about how you can make that very straightforward in regards to incorporating it, because if you don't, underwriting assumable debt can get very complicated, and then you can also mess a lot of things up. Um, not, I think one thing that's important too, while we're on this topic specifically, is that when you're factoring your numbers in, especially in the multifamily space, one of the biggest things is how much, like, what are my costs post on my income, right? So, for example, I'm just going to use this one and show you guys because it's easier to see. Here's my rental income, occupancy, gross income. So obviously, if I change the occupancy, that number changes. Do I have additional income? Then it's all that added up. What's my expense ratio? Here's my NOI. And then what are my expenses? What are my payments? Um, Monthly. Because this is the most important number. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you're not cash flowing and if you're not net positive, if you're not bringing the returns here that you want, is it worth really diving deeper? Not really. This specific one, actually, this is an actual property that I plugged in here. The reason why I didn't, I can tell you guys a quick backstory about it, is 4 units, 100% occupied, these are the rents per unit. Market cap and vacancy are low. Expense probably should be lower than this. This is being very conservative. 50-50 here, but it's in Los Angeles. A lot of rules go out the window when I say that, because all of a sudden this looks like a good deal. To me, I'd buy this if I had 1.1 to deploy. Absolutely. Personally, because it's LA. I know I live close by to this unit. I can drive there in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I know the person who built it and rehabbed it, which also helps. So it's like, why wouldn't I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't focus too much on cash in LA. As long as I'm above water, I'm happy personally. But that goes back to a really important part of knowing your market. Like, what are you expecting? What's the expectation? What's this upside? What's the long play? Because not every city, not every market are you going to be tackling cash flow, and you're not always going to be tackling long-term appreciation. And like building equity that way. I personally, my market I'm kind of shying away from my market because of the BS rules and whatnot, but we can get into that another day. I don't think anyone wants to hear me complain. But yeah, this is kind of something that I'm dabbling into on. I was actually trying to pitch this to another seller for another property, and they just didn't want to do it. But whatever, it is what it is. Is there anything? I think we can even go specific with the SDA, even though I don't want to share on the screen. But if you have any questions on that, or just general, the biggest components and factors, like something simple like this, or even this one that I shared, if it loads with the napkin. Why isn't that working? Anyway, so Dan, so I'm just gonna keep picking on you, because you're unmuted and your camera's on. But with the deals you've underwritten so far, what's been the biggest like takeaway, but also like hurdle with those deals so far?
I guess the biggest hurdle is understanding how to take, if you're taking on the debt, taking on an existing loan, is how to capture that in the underwriting model. Because obviously we know that when we refi, we're gonna be at the current market rate. So that's one of the biggest things that I've been trying to figure out with the SDA.
Thank you. That was a great question, and also I'm very happy with the caveat you put into there. Okay, personally, and I think most people would agree, I'm not saying don't worry about it, but worry about what your costs are during your holding period, your 5 years. Whatever the rate is then in 5 years, deal with it then. Because let's be fair, it's already a lot you're worrying about, to be like obviously, right? And remember this: at the end of the day, our goal is say today, knowing what we know now, and projecting that real estate's always going to go up. Now, it may not be 5 years, it may be 6 or 7 years, sure. But here's where I kind of leave that room for, not room for error, because it's not error, it's just market shift, is you just play conservative on a lot of the numbers today to leave room for future factors we have no control, no knowledge of. Shoot, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, yet alone 5 years from now, right? Especially with how crazy stuff is now. And if you look 5 years back and someone told you something like COVID would come around and flip everything upside down, you'd be predicting wrong then too. Because everything someone bought before 2020 looks like a grand slam once 2020 came around. 2021 market with the rates and stuff. So putting that into perspective, forwarding out 5 years, I'm not going to play the guessing game. What I'm going to do is say, hey, I think every year rents will go up this small percentage. Expenses will go up this percentage. We project the rents to be this today, which I can verify through rent stack and comps, and the work you're going to put in through CapEx, management, bringing the rents up. And then this is what we think it's going to be worth based off of your NOI. Your NOI doesn't factor the interest rates. which is a beautiful part about that simple equation, is if I have an NOI, I'm playing safe with my cap rate, I have a ballpark of what the property is going to be worth. And I think if you kind of want to pull up the SDA, but I'd rather not. But like you'll see the one section on it where it has the variable, and you can add little discrepancy in terms of cap rate increase per year. I wouldn't
Yeah.
put too high, but I also would be put something, right? Like I usually put 0.15, 0.20 if I'm playing safe. And you don't get too crazy with the upside on rent growth. I think that's a big one too. Don't get like I'm not putting 5% everywhere, depending on the market. So one thing that I do on this calculator, and I can show you, yeah, I can do with this. Okay. So with the assumable debt, what's really important, and my two biggest things with the assumable loans are how long do I have it for? And is there any prepayment fees? I can just give you an example based on what I'm acquiring now is a 9-year, 3.64, 9.7 million loan in Florida. Now, we owe our investors ideally their money back in 5 years. Does that mean I want to close that loan in 5 years? I personally don't. But see, we have two problems now. One, in order to return their money, I'd probably have to refinance. And if I want to resell the assumable loan, it's very, very low LTV. Does that make sense? Did I lose anyone with the LTV? So it's 9.7. I bought the property for 17.7 today. Let's say I want to sell it for 34, just double. That means that 9.7 covers a lot less of the total purchase price, which means someone else has to make up that difference. To say it simply. So here's what I do, and I think you can do this on any calculator. So this is essentially how it works. Let's say I have the purchase price at 2.2. Just actually for arguments, let's just put it like this. We're gonna make it 10 million, right? So that shifts everything. Let's say your loan, assumable loan, is at, I'm just gonna plug in a random number, 5743680. Cool. I literally couldn't get more random than that. So then what I do is I'll take the loan amount, which in this calculator, normally the loan is gonna be multiplied by your loan amount with your purchase price. I'm just gonna reverse it. Loan amount equals the loan amount I inputted. Because remember, that number is not changing. The price can change, my down payment can change if a seller carries, but one thing that's guaranteed not changing is the assumable debt amount. I divide that by the purchase price, and now I have the actual percentage that this is leveraged at, 57%, which is correct. Now, what happens if I go to them and say, hey, I'm not going to offer you 10, I'm going to offer you 9.5, the loan assumable loan amount still doesn't change. I don't care if you make the purchase price 6 million. That 5.7 is not going anywhere. Literally impossible, right? That's the point. So if I change it to 9.5, my calculator updates and now shows 60%. So I don't have to play the guessing game of how much is the leverage of the loan to whatever price I'm planning on offering. So that's a little thing where you just take the loan amount, divide it by the purchase price, and now you have your loan amount percentage. So if you're ever talking to a broker, kind of going back to like, well, this is kind of going to yesterday's call, but like broker talk. If you ever call a broker and they say there's an assumable loan, and you ask how much is it leveraged or what percentage of the loan is the purchase price, they're going to tell you based off of the asking price they have. But if you want to change the asking price because you're not going to offer that, you need to know what percentage you have to come up with now. And remember, this doesn't factor in any additional capital you need to bring to the table. CapEx, closing, XYZ, so on and so forth. This is just to close and acquire the deal, the property. So like I said, if you change this now to 11, it should go down. Bingo, 52%, right? So it's a direct reflection of what this loan amount is. Let's say this takes my numbers wrong, and this is actually 5.1. Well, now the percentage changes. So no matter what the situation is, that's how I would factor in an assumable loan into any calculator I'm running. This is just like an easy one for me to show. Ignore everything else. Like for this simple equation, it's really you're focusing on this. What's my loan amount? What's the loan they're offering? And then that's when I play with this. Is it amortized for X? And then you can change your percentages. Like let's say it's actually at 3.4. See how that's a $13,000 difference on your mortgage? That's why we're interested in it, right? It's very important to like make sure you get those numbers right. And then here's one more thing that the Michael Blanc calculator does well. This one won't. This is why this is more of a premature preliminary underwriting. Is one of the biggest important things of it is when does that interest only period end if there is one? Because if I take away an interest only and add principal, all of a sudden your payments skyrocket overnight and you had no idea, nor did you factor it in. One thing I personally like to do, I would say less than a year, because the first year, most like on a value add, the first year anyway, you shouldn't be making money. If you're properly like getting people out and rehabbing units and you have a lot of vacancy and downtime and you have the adjustment period, like so much is going on the first year. If you're not, you don't want to be negative, but if you're not crazy positive, that's just fine. If I have a IO period that ends less than a year, or maybe just a little over a year, I just say principal and interest is due like day one. So I factor that into my budget and my underwriting just to give me a little bit of a buffer. So it's like maybe a $10,000 difference. I factored that in. Like worst case scenario, that covers any more vacancies I can potentially have. It covers any more rent issues I might have, any more transitioning period. One thing with the underwriting that's really important, and as you underwrite more and get further into underwriting a deal and actually putting an LOI in, you realize how many times you have to run through the cycle and scenarios you have to factor. And every little penny has to almost be accounted for as you get to the home stretch. And that's just like putting an offer. Okay, now the purchase agreement is being prepared. Holy, oh, we have lawyers involved now. We have PPMs being set up. Once money starts becoming equation in the deal, all of a sudden it's like, okay, now my numbers really need to look good. You're going to be underwriting the same deal 100 times throughout the life of the deal, and even more when you get towards the end of it. And especially when you do your inspections. For example, we had an inspection of the Florida deal. We had to re-underwrite. We had to re-budget. We got requests for credit. And that has to factor into your underwriting. How is it going to factor into your underwriting? Where is that money coming off of? There's so many different components and factors of the underwriting thing that comes on with it. And I know we've kind of strayed away from what the assumable loan is. You get my point how like even the couple dollars here make a big difference, right? So no, I love that question, Dan. I'm happy you brought that up because I think that's something that it's great to look into, but underwriting it does get kind of tricky. Are you running into a lot of deals that have assumable loans now? Those are my favorite, to be fair, but then you have to raise the capital, make up the difference.
No, I've just come across just a couple, just a few. Maybe like two or three that I've come across. I don't think it's many. Like I said, I've only underwritten about 25 deals, so I've been doing underwriting for a few months now. So I'm a little behind the curve,
yeah,
behind that 100 deals.
yeah. It's definitely one thing. I can even do this with you. Or actually, I can do this for anyone that's interested. If you need deal to practice on, or you just want a deal to underwrite, I have some. Well, I take that back. I need to be able to access my email first because I lost access yesterday, so I'm figuring that out. But if I get access to that email, which I might be able to do on my phone, if you guys just want deals to underwrite, I have a gajillion OMs in my email box with like rent rolls or T12s and all the docs you can think of, like just sitting there. It's like a graveyard at this point. So if
Yeah,
anyone
absolutely.
feels to just go to town and underwrite or just play with numbers, be my guest. Like hit me up, reach out to me. I can forward a couple. Obviously, if I can access my email, I'm gonna preface that into the equation. And if you have questions, I've seen and should remember most of them. So it's pretty easy for me to compare notes because there's a good chance I've probably underwritten it already, um, which helps. And I should be familiar with it. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think that's a terrible thing to test out and test the waters with, especially because they get so. Uh, if you can find out if they sold, like there should be some far back enough that I'm for sure there's some of these that have closed. So to see what they close at, if that's possible to get, would be interesting. That's something I don't do that I kind of would like to do more of. Um, that would be kind of like a fun little test run to kind of see um where that happened, like how that worked out. So I'm gonna put my email that I have access to just because I don't want to give you an email I can't access, and then I would just send it from a different email. So if you guys want to email me or shoot me a text, my phone number is in my name. I'll put it here too. That'd be the easiest way. Um, if you text me your email or just email me directly, that'd be the quickest. Um, and I can help you guys with any calculators you guys are running. One thing I learned too, underwriting so many deals, it gets to a certain point where if you know Excel, it drastically helps you underwriting deals. Like you're learning the tool that created the calculator before the actual tool itself. It makes understanding underwriting so much easier. So if you're struggling with something, and this is just general, like if you're seeing like your numbers not working somewhere, just work backwards. And I think that's where like the SDA, Dan, for example, there's so many tabs and so many like correlations and relationships between cells and tabs and sheets and whatever else that if you click the wrong one or change the wrong thing or delete the wrong thing, your whole calculator goes haywire. And then reverse engineering that sometimes sucks. So if you do have any issues, I always recommend don't ignore the real estate side of it, but like, all right, let me just go back and look at the formulas. Like for example, if you deleted each of these cells on this one, why is this so slow? But I'm trying to click my screen. But if you delete each of the cells in this formula on this Excel sheet, I can just replicate it from scratch because I've used it so many times. Obviously, I would not like to, and I would suck. But I just know if you change something and I see something wrong, I know where it came from. That's how familiar you want to be with whatever calculator you're using. The more you study that, the more you'll be able to underwrite deals faster. And it'll also allow you to see the whole in, like, for example, Michael Blanc is a perfect one, the SDA. A lot of people use it. If you know the correlation and relationship between all the different cells and tabs and whatever the case is in the calculator, it becomes reviewing it with other people so much faster and easier. Like we have a team. Every single person can underwrite on the team. Like that's a very, I think that's a requirement to get into any deal. If you can't underwrite yourself, you're already behind the eight ball. Um, so knowing how to do that is obviously, in my opinion, one of the most important entry point tasks or skills to have. But if we all look at the same calculator, we all know what the numbers have correlation to, and if we see something that throws it off, someone should catch it. And that's the point. It's I'm not relying on you or whoever on my team is to do the underwriting. It's just okay. Now I can have a conversation about all of this and say, hey, why did you put that instead of this? Or if we change this, how does it affect that? And then all of a sudden, that's how you start conversations. Um, so like, let's be honest. Anytime you see a property hit the market, like this is my thing with LoopNet, for example. And this is kind of like a disclaimer out to everyone who's looking for their first deal or you're trying to source deals. If something's been on LoopNet for let's say 3 months, right? It's a pretty long time. what am I gonna see today that the last 3 months someone else hasn't seen? Unless there's new information that is not on LoopNet, or not you specifically, but whoever knows something that the last 3 months someone hasn't seen, or the people have seen don't know. What's the new information? That's the biggest thing for me. So anytime someone sends me a LoopNet deal, I'm very curious as to like, what's the new information? Did something change? Do you know something about this market that someone else might not? Is there something on in the documents that you might know about that I don't, or whatever the case is? Because think like, if it's still on the market after 3, 4, 5, 6 months, that's a lot of eyes on it. And especially nowadays where everyone's saying go look at LoopNet for deals, um, it's kind of hard to say, hey, go find something and see something no one else has. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's a numbers game. Like, where's my time best spent? Go talk to the brokers who might give you an off market before it hits LoopNet, or something that's been on LoopNet for 5 months, and I'm hoping I see something 5 months of people looking at it haven't. But if you're doing it to underwrite, by all means, I think that's a good idea, and I think that's definitely a good way to practice. But if you're looking for a deal, I'm not shutting LoopNet down because there's still some good stuff there possibly. It's just, remember, you get what you pay for too. Or there's time or homework or finding the broker who's going to send you something that no one else is seeing. It's really important to, like, on the underwriting, to not try to reinvent the wheel. Everyone's looking at the same numbers. And that's kind of like my big spiel on that. Went really off topic, but I guess we didn't really have a topic anyway. Any other comment or question on underwriting itself? Yeah, go for it, Quentin.
Yeah, so I actually have a deal, and I live in the Denver area, and there was a deal that I was hoping that you would look at. It
Sure.
looks like it's a pretty good deal, but I haven't I'm not into a deal yet, so I'm just gonna give you the address to it because I don't know how to like transfer it or put it on my screen.
Where's it? Is it online?
Yeah, it's on LoopNet.
Okay. I should be ready. I hope, if my computer cooperates. Let's give it a shot. Or if you want, let's make it easier. Can you type in the chat the address so I can just?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too.
Yeah.
Me or that.
Denver's cool. I know some people who invest in Colorado.
Yeah, there wasn't there didn't seem to be any good deals for a while, but now it seems like some of them might be starting to come up. So
I'd be down to come to Denver. I'd love to catch a Nuggets game. That'd be fun.
nice.
I'm a sports guy, for anyone that doesn't know. So if your city has a sports team, whether it's football or basketball, I'm down. I'll come visit and come to a game. My goal is to knock off as many. The bucket list is to hit as many stadiums and arenas as I can.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, let's check this out. You know what the market rents are for the area?
That's the only thing that I don't know, but I can guess they're probably like 1100 because no rent around here is seems like it's much lower than that.
No rent is lower.
I mean, it's very hard to find.
75% of units to be slightly renovated. Would you have an idea of what the CapEx budget would be on the remaining 25. Is this not gonna give me the OM? Do you have the OM?
What's the OM? Sorry.
Offering memorandum. OM is basically, okay, that's a good question. So for anyone that doesn't know, the OM is an offering memorandum. Essentially, it's the marketing package that a agent will put together for any property they're looking to sell. It'd be rare to see a direct seller have an OM. I'd kind of be surprised, but if they're high level enough, I guess maybe they may. I don't know if you'd spend the time to do it, but can you guys see the screen? You can see the OM, right?
Yep, it's there. It's up there.
Okay, cool, perfect. My computer's just going ape. I'm getting a new computer today, which I'm very excited about, so we don't have to deal with all these BS technical issues that I've been having the last forever. So yay to that, but until then, we're stuck here. So this is the OM. It's essentially just a property overview, tells you the fun stuff, the good stuff, and
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
Oh, what was that, Quentin?
Yeah, I had seen that information, but I didn't realize that was the OM for it. So.
Yeah. This is the offering memorandum. Actually, no, I don't want to use this one. So we're gonna do this.
Now, do you already have the T12 and the financials for that as well?
No, this one I just have the OM, and I don't think they have it on Just LoopNet. So here's the thing too.
Didn't look like it, but I didn't know if Lynn already had it.
No, I didn't call about it yet.
So I don't love doing this, but it'll give you a good idea. It'll give you a good idea still of the property. I don't have it. This isn't important. Yeah, I can overwrite this. Wow, why is this not cooperating? Okay. 12 units. The price is 1985.
If the stuff is accurate on there, it seems like a good price for that many units. It says 165,000 a unit.
You know anything about the area itself, the pocket it's in?
Let's see, it's in Denver. The exact area, no, I probably should go look at the actual apartment. Like just check out the area. It's about 45 minutes from where I live.
Okay. Question, what expense percentage should one underwrite to in a GA? What is GA? Like, is the rule of thumb? Oh, in Georgia. I had a feeling it was Georgia, but I wasn't sure. My bad. I would do it based on class. So if it's in like a nicer area on the expense, or a nicer building, I should say, on the expense, your expenses are going to be lower because the repairs and maintenance are going to be lower. But actually, you bring up another good point. Remember, whatever expense ratio someone like an agent or seller is giving you currently, unless they have some like extremely ridiculous expenses, there's a good chance monetarily yours is going to be higher. That doesn't mean the percentage is higher because you're going to increase your income, which lowers that percentage, but the dollar amount of those expenses should be higher just based off of the tax and most likely insurance. But let's just stick with tax. So, for example, at least how it is in California, so I'm going to make it simple for everyone because this is how it is here. If I bought a property 10 years ago and I sell it today, the tax gets reassessed based on today's purchase price. That's a big difference. If it was $1 million 10 years ago and 5 now, that's more than 5 times the tax cost. Just off the bat. Everything else remains constant. You've dramatically increased your expenses. So keep that in mind when you're worrying about the expense percentage and the ratio. Don't rely on what is given to you today. Get quotes, make assumptions, know your market. What are my new costs if I take over tomorrow? Because a lot of things are going to change. Make sure you know what property management company they're using, how much they're charging. Do they have what's their percentage? Do you have a better one? These are all things to keep in mind. I messed up this formula, so I need to change it back. So this is going to equal this times this, and then my Excel is gonna get pissed off at me because I did a correlation to it. So I'm trying to play admin and do this at the same time, but we're getting there. Do you know if there's an assumable loan?
No, I don't.
Okay. So here's the thing. If there is an assumable loan, usually it'll be marketed and advertised because it is something that people want to make aware and to sweeten the deal for whoever's purchasing it. So let's just, for argument's sake, use the numbers they provided us, which is the rent numbers, laundry income and late fees. So they have about 1,800 coming in for the year. That's really low.
Oh, you pulled up the rent on there.
Sorry?
You pulled up the rent on there.
This is from them. This is part of the OM. So let's say 1,800 divided by 12, so that's 100. I'm not even gonna try to do this quick math in my head because I'm not in the mood for it. So all I'm doing right now is just calculating the additional income that they're stating. So they're factoring utility reimbursement. That's another big thing with your expenses. Make sure you understand what their utility costs are and what you can and cannot reimburse. That's going to be a big factor into what your expenses are and how you're going to equate all of that into your numbers on the back end. So they're saying 25%, which is 1/4, which means 3 units, give or take, need to be updated, not counting any exterior. I'm gonna spitball and say you need maybe 10K a unit for those 3. So that's 30 on a 12 unit. Let's say you need another, for argument's sake, 30 on the exterior, maybe more. Let's put 20 in there. So we're at 60, 80, 90. Let's just call it 100 on the CapEx. And again, for sake of easy math, divided by 12. All right, so we're just gonna say 8,000 per unit is my budget, 100,000 CapEx. I could be way off, but just so you guys have an idea of how I got there, I'm literally just spitballing. So, but again, at the end of the day, it's gonna take a little more homework than that. I just don't know enough about this area. So you see how here their expense percentage ratio is 24 and 33 on the pro forma side. Just because this is preliminary and I don't want to go too crazy into it without knowing more about this building, I'm just gonna say, okay, that's what it is. Let's just go off of that for now. I was looking for one more thing here. So let's say their vacancy, current occupancy, let's just put at 95. Market vacancy, let's put at 5. I don't think I'm missing anything. Pricing analysis, loan amount. So this is their proposed financing. One thing I love when I see this, because they're basing all of their numbers off of the proposed financing. If I can't get that proposed financing, I don't care what their numbers say. So now that, because the point of the proposed financing is, hey, look at how great it is with these terms on my loan and at this price. What happens if I can't get these terms on the loan? All of a sudden that price doesn't look as nice. So if I'm like, hey, cool story, I can't get 6.75 and neither can you, it's now 7.5. You've like right off the bat, you've dropped the price. No questions asked. And if they don't want to drop the price, it's like, okay, then rework the numbers and show me that it makes sense still. and it's probably not, to be fair. So that's something to keep in mind. And I'm looking at this right here, the proposed financing right here. So that's something to keep in mind. So this is their debt service, again, based off of this. Cash flow indicators, nothing crazy here. One thing I like to do as well is when you're looking at this, because one thing I like about my calculator is it shows my NOI. It's almost spot on. Again, it's never going to be perfect. I don't need it to be exact. I'm only $500 off the NOI. $500 is nothing when you're underwriting something of this scale. So again, it doesn't have to be exact, but 125, 125, 127, 127, good. Like, hey, I'm going off the numbers you gave me, and then I will make my own assumptions once I see if I should dive deeper into this. And then sales comparables, cool. I like knowing them, but I'm definitely very. I kind of hold back a little bit on that end when it's like so long ago. Because one thing with sales comparables is important to know. Don't only look at the time and the price per unit and the price that those properties sold at, but look at what the interest rates were then. Look at how many other things are possibly on the market at around the same time. Competition is everything. If it's a property that had no competition, it was sold for more. If it's a property that had a lot of competition, it probably sold for less. Well, when I say competition, I mean inventory. You can kind of get what I mean there. And then another beautiful part of the OM, this is more ideal for people who don't know an area too well. Just an overview of the market. And that's it. So that's the OM. And Dan, kind of to your point about having a T12 or a rent roll or whatnot, this is the best I'm gonna get out of an OM. Sometimes they include the T12, sometimes they include the rent roll. Less often the rent roll, more often the T12. But what they do is you get kind of like a screenshot, like a quick little snapshot summary. And I'll use that for now. Like it works initially, but I would never put an offer solely on that. I think depends. Unless it looks really good, but unlikely. Very rare. I don't like saying never, but you get my point. So on that, with that being said and done, we kind of have all of our inputs, right? And one thing I like about a calculator, and you want to make sure you have this with your calculator that you use, and I think ours is like this, is you want to make sure everything's kind of like a checklist. Okay, I did the cap rate, I did the vacancy, I did the rent, I did the additional income, I did the capex, I know the units, I got the expense ratios, I got the price. All right, cool. Everything looks good. Now, I'm going to change this because that's definitely not the rate we're going to get if my computer wants to cooperate. All right, cool. So let's say rates are at 7, which even that might be low. I've worked so much with assumable loans, I don't know what the rates are, or I don't get quoted on rates often, if that makes sense. Because almost every deal I look like is an assumable loan, kind of the opposite of what Dan deals with, funny enough. So you'll probably know the rate. Okay, here's a good question, Dan. What number are you underwriting your no assumable loan deals on the rate side?
Most of the loans that I've been, all the underwriting that I've been doing, I've just been putting 6.5%.
Got it. Okay. So, well, I guess 7. I'll just yeah, we can leave. I think
I think 7's being conservative.
Okay, cool. We're just gonna put
Yeah.
6.5 because I trust you more on that at the moment. Why'd I do that? Okay, cool. So off the bat, what do I look for? Well, one, here's a big component about all this, and this is where underwriting can get tricky. I think someone asked this yesterday. What are you paying out to your investors? Because remember, this underwriting is as is, but you're not factoring what it costs to have your investors in the deal. Let's say I put a 6%. Here's another trick. Based on your cash on cash return, at least in this calculator, because it's a much more simplified one than like a Michael Blanc, for example, the SDA. My cash on cash is gonna show me exactly what it would be if I factored in my pref. So if I have my cash on cash day one at 3.43, which is sell H, whatever number this is, 23. This cell, right? Actually, I'm just gonna highlight it. Okay. So you see those two numbers? The second I put my preferred return at 6, it's gonna be deducting it from those two. So it's really important to know what you're paying your investors, because this is before you've even done an equity split, right? So if obviously this is a simplified version, the SDA will go into way more detail. But if I'm already like, hey, I'm not positive, it's a little bit of a slippery slope, right? Now, how do we change? Not change. You don't want to leverage numbers unfavorably. It's one is knowing what the additional income that they're projecting that you can get to is, but also obviously the price, because if you change this, you're gonna change a lot. Let's say even to 5. Looks better. And remember, this is very like this is okay. So the SDA calculator, for example, and this is when you dive deeper into more underwriting. This is a very scenario 1, scenario 2, and there's no in between. Where the SDA shows you this is 1 and how you get to 2, and then how you get to 3, and then how you get to year 4, and it kind of like paints that picture and tells a story and factors in the process along the way. This calculator is not going to do that. No napkin calculator should do that. I think that's way too much of a deep dive. Not no calculator, but again, like just be wary of like you don't want to find out too much too soon or put too much into it too soon, because then you're just running in circles. Now, what are the things you can control? See if you can see if they have an assumable loan, obviously, step 1. I don't think so, because if they had one, they would have marketed and advertised that. So I may have missed it, but I didn't see it. Step 2, it's my favorite thing in the world, seller carry. Hey, you want your 195.85, whatever the price was, right? What's my most expensive thing and my hardest thing to come by is right here. Yes, this rate is higher, but you're paying them equity. Remember that. Like, sure, this rate is higher, but their equity is more expensive. Long term. Short term, they're more favorable. But long run, equity is always more expensive than interest. So what if I say, okay, I only want to bring 15% to the table, you carry the 20. And I'm not giving you 6. I'll give you 3. And I'm giving you interest only. See, you're at the 1985, but you're closer a little bit. Because before that, you were way more negative. So now if I want to play with the price a little, I don't have to go as far down. And it's still not bad. So this kind of like, that's what I mean by with the calculators. Like, you want to just play around with it, a little bit of trial and error, understand the relationship with all the different cells and how they each correlate and how it all works out. Do I want to say this deal's dead? No, not. I would never shut it down that quickly. If they're willing to carry, you could get them to carry a large amount. That'd be my first shot at it. Like, hey, I'll give you 60% down, carry the rest, or carry a majority of it. Just go get a loan for 60%, have them carry it. You don't have to raise capital except for the CapEx budget. That's a play I'd like to do. Here's the thing I love about the seller carry component of things. And for all sub 2 people, you kind of get where I'm coming from. I can't negotiate with a bank or a lender, but I can negotiate with the seller. It's a give and take at that point. Hey, you want your price? I'll give you the price. To me, I'm the least argumentative when it comes to price. I'm always the guy that's like, yeah, I'll pay whatever price you want, but let me do it on my terms. And that's how you make that happen. Now do you want to like over leverage yourself to where you pay the price too soon? Yes, I think that is shooting yourself in the foot. But if you give yourself 7, 10 years on something like this, sign me up. Like I'll take that risk. Worst case, you pay everyone out and you just let the property ride and hope eventually it'll figure itself out. That's very situational though, obviously knowing the deal and the actual numbers itself. So any questions on anything that I kind of like rambled on about this one? Quentin, I like this example. Thank you for sharing that. That was good. It was fun. It's very quick, which was nice. Surprisingly, we made good on time. Quentin, I hope that helped, gave you a little bit of insight. Interest rates are everyone's worst enemy right now. And also keep in mind, capital raising is becoming a little more expensive because it's harder to raise. So if you're struggling to raise capital, the first thing you're gonna have to do is give people more back, or make it more enticing for someone to invest with you, and that's always gonna cost more. So you need to find a better deal, or take less on a deal, which I would never recommend, because you leave room for error. Remember, it's not only that you're giving up more, it's you have less room for mistake. If I do a deal, and I'm not suggesting by any means this is okay, but if I can make sure my investors get paid out first, and then I have to take a hit at any point of the deal, better me than them. Because the day they have to take a hit, it means you really screwed up. Like a lot of things went wrong. The day an investor loses money on your clock, under your watch, that's a big red flag. That means that everything went wrong, and you didn't leave enough room for error. If I make less, that's on me. Like, I'm the GP. I take that risk, and then people are trusting me with their money. But if I have to ask them for like, hey, you're making like you're losing money, good luck. So that's all I got on this. I'm gonna real quick, please work and don't bug out on me. Any other questions before I stop the recording and whatnot? Okay.